Hey all, MVP here. Hope you had a good trading week. I just want to give you an update on what happened week ended 19th of February, so stand by. First and foremost, if you go to my thread at Trade to Win, go to post 6043, you'll see my commentary about the week generally and what was going on, but I just want to give you a little bit more in depth now as to what happened. I'm going to use three charts to do that. On the left here, I'm going to use a 1 hour FX correlator. There's two of them loaded up. One is on the 80 that I talk about a lot, and one is on the 20. Middle chart is actually the US 30. That's the Dow. We'll talk about that. And last but not least, on the right, this is an FX correlator. This is on a 500 setting. What that does is it gives you much more of an indication of where the price is moving, real price, real direction. That's on a 1 hour. And again, I'm going to talk about the week. Okay, so they're the three I'm going to be focusing on. Very quickly, let's look at what the week did in terms of the equity market. I'm going to use this as a lead. The reason I use this one is because it's a futures feed from my platform, ODL FXCM MetaTrader 4. It is 24 hours a day, so it gives me that liquidity of feed. I'm not saying it's perfectly accurate because obviously when the Dow is not live, it's not live in New York, it's not great, but it gives me much more of an idea than not having the information at all. So what happened in the week? I'm just going to stretch it back. Last week, we were continuing to rise. First part of the week was a little bit of came back, as you can see. So Monday and Tuesday, definitely some falls in the Dow, although it took quite a while to get below my 20 and my 80s. But I was expecting here, first half of the week, I would have expected to see the tag team actually doing quite well above the zero and the G6 generally falling. So that's what I would have expected to see based on the way I correlate the markets. Second half of the week, literally, as we went into the very, very early hours of Wednesday, it took off again like a scalded cat. Look at it, it just goes here. Upwards, big rises on Wednesday. Thursday flat, and then bang as the US opened. So this is really looking around when the US comes on stream. Big, big push. Thursday again, a little bit overnight on the futures market forward and then going. So really, the last 3 days of the week, I really expect to see a lot of pressure, a lot of buying pressure on equities, which means generally a lot of the currencies which respond and react to risk starting to fall quite a bit. So you'd expect to see certainly the yen and the US dollar, as we've historically seen, also the Swissy, which I'll talk about later. Okay, so that's where I expected the markets to be moving, or what I'd see the Forex markets doing based on what the Dow is doing. So remember that. Okay, bearing that in mind, I'm going to talk you through what happened, first of all, on our two main currencies, the US dollar and the yen. Okay, on the left here is the 80-20. Remember I said that the first 2 days of the week, really, we saw some ranging and definitely some bearish action on the equity market, the US equities. So I would expect to see the tag team relatively buoyant during that period. And they were, as you can see, on Monday on the 80s, they were above. And for quite a bit of the time, especially when the US came on stream, we had some bullish movement there. So there were some signals there. And again, you'll be looking to sell the G6s that were the most opposing to that move. Came into Tuesday, the yen actually was disappointingly weak, very disappointed weak. The dollar tried to stay and hang in there north based on those falls we were seeing, but not really much there. And again, in terms of signals, that was pretty scrappy. Remember, I'm looking to see both of these guys either above or below the lines on both charts, and that was a scrappy day, if truth be told. Over here on the 500, which was the 2 days here, as you can see, the dollar was relatively ranging and the yen was falling. So quite a weak yen actually, based on what we were seeing in the markets. Okay, second half of the week, this is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Remember I said that the Dow took off like a scalded cat from about Wednesday. Great moves up on the equity markets generally, actually, globally. And that would expect me to see any currencies that are very, very sensitive to risk movements would be falling. The ones that react negatively to risk were falling. And sure enough, it was a great 3 days. Initial moves up, which was a bit of a strange one, and then really from when the US came on stream on Wednesday, we never looked back. I mean, really, if you look here in detail there, certainly on the 80 and potentially mostly on the 20, can you see these guys never came north again? They were all south. Permanent buy potential on the G6 against those two guys for virtually 3 days of the week. And again, you can see it more pronounced here. Here's Wednesday, a little bit of a kickback there, and then bang! Look at that dollar. And look at that yen. In fact, the dollar really settled in. I mean, terrible week for the dollar, really. Look at it. They're going through a bad time at the moment. A lot of mixed messages coming out from the Fed. And, yeah, it's reflected in this, but the dollar had a bad week, and so did the yen. So, as I said, we had plenty of potential here to be buying the other G6 currencies, the ones that came to the forefront, and making some good money this week. Certainly the back half of the week. Okay, let's talk about winners and losers, sorry, on the G6 this week. Starting with the potential winners. Let's start with the red pound at the start of the week. Now, as you're probably all aware, watching the markets as you do, the pound had a really interesting week this week. They held exchange rates, or sorry, they held interest rates this week. But boy, oh boy, it was what was being said and not being said that was more important than the headline figure. Mervyn King saying one thing, then saying another. At the end of the day, the market had definitely priced in a move. The market actually has priced in at least a 0.75% rise by the end of the year, made their decisions and stuck by it. Through the week, generally, the pound has been very strong, and clearly, as I said, with the dollar and the yen falling, easy money, easy money. Here we are, nothing really much going on Monday. By Tuesday, the pound, look at that, bang, up she goes, and holds. Comes back. Wednesday wasn't so good, a little bit messy, but by Thursday and Friday, as you can see here, you see the red pound here? It's up above the zero, and it peaks up and stays above the zero there. You can see that big spike there based on the interest rate announcements. And you can see then it came back off, probably due to profit taking, and then it just picked up again. So very good week for the pound, funnily enough. So that was pretty much our star buy of the week. Second currency of the week that did very well was the Swissy. Here it is in grey, in bold. And I haven't got it in bold here, but I'll go back to the start week. Now, the Swiss is a funny old sausage. I can't really put it in any particular tribe. I'd try and call it a European and sit it with the pound and the euro, and then another day it will be a risk play and it will sit firmly with the yen and the dollar. So I sit it in between. This week, because, well, the papers are saying because of the Middle East unrest and safe havens and so on and so forth, the Swiss's reputation for being a safe haven, strong currency, I think that gave it the nod this week. And as you can see, especially even from Tuesday, you can see the grey spent a lot of time north. Big money. Look at this. It was by far the strongest currency Wednesday, Thursday, and you can see here punching up through, and even coming back and holding on Friday. Also, in terms of other thoughts on that, there was a little bit of speculation of potentially some interest rates rises as well there from their central banks, so that always makes things interesting. Beware the Swissy though, because they will quite happily intervene and start messing about with the rates directly by buying and selling the currency itself. So always beware of that, same as the Bank of Japan. Let's finish off with the commodity dollars, the ComDols as I call them, the terrible trio. That violet there is the CAD, the goldish colour there is the Aussie dollar, and the turquoise blue is the New Zealand dollar. Generally flat to falling week, as you can see. These are the start points at the week for the currency. CAD had a bad week actually. It held, and then really dropped through the floor. It fell down with its cousin, the US dollar, so it had a bad week. So that wasn't too clever on the CAD. You certainly weren't buying the CAD into the falling tag team back end of the week. And as you can see it down here, it's brown on here. You can see it's very much down here, working alongside those guys. Aussie dollar had a bad 3 or 4 days in the week. Did pick up towards the end of the week though, so there were actually some buys again against the tag team. You can see here, Aussie dollar here, some nice buys on Thursday. You can see that kind of held, came down on the 20s on Friday. As you can see here, came down, but there was some potential buys. It did come back on Thursday, and it joined the Swissy and the pound in some nice buys. New Zealand dollar will tend to trend similarly to the Aussie dollar, although they do have their moments. The New Zealand dollar for me tends to be a little bit too volatile for my taste. As you can see, it did track. It tracked through with its cousin there, came through. A little bit of a kick up. It actually had a kick up on Friday. And I'm just looking across to see if there were some trades there. As you can see, just came up there. So it peaked its head up there for a buy. So there's a little bit of money on Friday into it, but generally it's been south. And when you get a situation like this, when you get so many currencies south, if you've got the ComDols falling and you've got your tag team falling, that provides fantastic buys on the Europeans, the ones that are actually rising. Remember, it's a zero-sum game. So if you've got 4 or 5 or even 6 currencies falling, all of that power, all of those values go into the ones that are rising and send them through the roof. So very, very good week for the Europeans. I've been through it. Okay, hope you had a good week. Let's do well next week. This is MVP signing off. Cheers.